A new tropical disturbance in the eastern Caribbean looks to bring impacts to our area for the week ahead. Your forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas starts right now.
This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. Great to see you on this Tuesday afternoon. I hope that you're doing well. Coming up in this video, we have a new tropical disturbance in the southeast Caribbean. This was the tropical wave we were monitoring, but now it is a full-fledged disturbance and a higher likelihood of development and impacts across the Caribbean as we move through the week ahead. So as we get started, I love to hear from you. Drop it in the comments section below where you're viewing from and what the weather has been like, and we're going to get this started right away. So let's move into this. And obviously, we're going to take our time and deep dive into this disturbance. Now, again, this was a tropical wave that moved across the Windward and the Leeward Islands overnight and early this morning. Woke up this morning, it looked very impressive. Then early in the afternoon, the Hurricane Center saw enough to go ahead and make this an active invest. This is invest 94L. It's moving off towards the west at around 30 miles an hour. That's the maximum sustained winds as well. And the central pressure is about 1,010 millibars. Now, look, this is an elongated area of disturbed showers and storms. Nothing is organized as of yet. And over the course of the day, this wave is kind of elongated itself. And it's very typical for that to happen here. Again, a little bit more tightly wound, and then it kind of gets a little bit more flared on the north and western sides. You can see the numbers. Those are your wind gusts. We have had some 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts around this area. But again, it's a very large system already here. If we take a look at how far it is kind of stretching from west to east here, let's say easily nearly 600 miles, okay? So the question now becomes, do we consolidate this down as this disturbance moves off towards the west and into more favorable conditions for us here? And then does that consolidate into an actual tropical depression or even a tropical storm? But it's a wide swath of unorganized showers and storms at the hour. But again, impressive enough that we do have this new disturbance. Now you can see the track from the Hurricane Center. This is that line in yellow here that would then take it into the Western Caribbean, and this is where the Hurricane Center thinks that it could develop maybe late on Thursday, Friday, and then into the weekend as it gets closer to portions of North Central America and then the Yucatan Peninsula. But obviously the impacts are going to be felt a little bit farther. And it's also very impressive that there is a lot of Saharan dust on the northern side of this that it's butting up into, and there's a lot of drier air here. You can see that the winds have been very fresh over Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands and portions of the Lesser Antilles as well, 30, even some 35-mile-an-hour winds. A lot of different imagery we can take a look at. Let's look at the water vapor imagery here. You can see that drier air, which is going to keep Hispaniola and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands drier for today. But the fact that this disturbance has been able to basically develop near an area of fairly concentrated Saharan dust just shows you how primed the Caribbean is for development. When we're talking about La Nina, we're talking about very hot ocean sea surface temperatures and very little wind shear. So it's just very impressive to see this. This is what it looks like on the enhanced visible satellite imagery for you right now. Our high resolution visible, take just 1 second for it to begin to loop. And again, we saw some really dense overcast near the center. It's a little bit more exposed on the eastern sides, but obviously these developing waves and these developing disturbances, they cycle in nature, especially diurnally, meaning during the afternoon, and then during the morning hours, we see impulses coming up and coming back down. We can also take a look at this here. I love this view as well. This is basically the enhanced imagery with also our visible satellite imagery, and you can see those blow up of storms. Now, some of this will try and work its way towards the southern coastline of Hispaniola and Puerto Rico. Generally, though, with the Saharan dust in play, it's not going to reach those areas. It should, if we want to talk about some beneficial things first, it should bring some rain to the ABC Islands, areas that are desperate to get this rain. Right now, the leading edge of that convection is moving through Bonaire and Curacao towards Aruba, but there will be more to come as that area of low pressure continues to move off towards the west. Again, nothing is developed at this point in time, but this is what we're going to be watching, friends, as we go through the remainder of the week. So this is our new disturbance, 94L. Now, again, as I've mentioned, it's very impressive that it's developed over this area of Saharan dust. When you have such a dynamic forecast as far as La Nina and everything else that I just mentioned, just because the Saharan dust is present doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be shutting off, any areas to actual development. And this is just an indication of that right now, because there is a concentration of Saharan dust near that center of circulation. It's obviously a little bit more, concentrated as you go farther north. This is going to bring a lot of haze and drier conditions to a good portion of the greater Antilles, stretching into Cuba and even into the Turks and the Caicos as we move over the next couple of days. But underneath and south of that is where that disturbance will continue to try and develop here. Now, we're going to get into what's happening right now, and then we'll have much more a deep dive on this disturbance and the rest of the tropics coming up. I've got your island by island rainfall forecast coming up as well. But let's start. We've already kind of broken down the present with that disturbance. Let's talk about where other storms are developing at the hour on this Tuesday afternoon. We have scattered showers and storms through portions of the Bahamas right now, a few near Grand Bahama. It's been a little bit more concentrated over Eleuthera for today. A couple of storms near Nassau, New Providence, Andros, on over towards Abaco. Again, as I've mentioned, we're going to flare up some scattered storms today, not as numerous in nature as what we had yesterday, but still the opportunity even for the central and the southeast Bahamas as this elongated area moves up north and east. And so Bermuda is going to start to see some of these showers and storms and the interaction of a weak system coming off of the United States East Coast. Most of this will be east of the Bahamas here overnight, but we can see a few more storms tomorrow. The storms have really begun to ramp up through portions of Cuba with the heat of the afternoon. We're starting to see some storms getting going in portions of Jamaica, especially on the western side of the island, towards Montego Bay and Savannah Lamar and Negril, Westmoreland Parish, Hanover, St. James, St. Elizabeth, still under a fairly good moisture plume in this area, so still a good opportunity for storms area-wide across Jamaica later today. It's been a little bit more isolated in the Cayman Islands, but again, now with the heat of the day, these storms are beginning to develop there, at least a few storms closer to the Grand Cayman area. Because the Saharan dust is a big factor, as I've mentioned, for Haiti and the Dominican Republic, relatively low storm chances. About a 10% chance we'll pop up a couple of isolated storms the next couple of days, but certainly much drier air coming in. Same situation for Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, about a 10% chance of rain the next few days, excessive heat warnings, haze, humidity is going to be the big factor in this area, at least until Thursday, when we start to see another axis of moisture come in and improve the rain chances. It's going to be the same scenario for Anguilla, St. Martin, St. Bartholomew, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, and Montserrat, where we have a relatively dry forecast and a fairly thick layer of Saharan dust to play with. You get south of Montserrat, especially Guadeloupe, Dominica, Martinique. Now, we had better rain in this area, obviously, earlier in the day. The axis of moisture is west, but still the opportunity to fire up a few scattered showers through the evening hours of this Tuesday. And then we'll begin to see the rain chances in this area wind down as well. But a few showers are possible. Martinique, St. Lucia, Barbados, probably a little bit too far east, maybe an isolated shower. That's about it. St. Vincent and the Grenadines could catch a tail end shower or two. And the same thing for Grenada, Trinidad, and Tobago. Obviously, we had healthier rain late last night, earlier this morning, but now that the wave is off towards the west, it's going to be a little bit drier for us here. And again, the ABC Islands let us get some of this moisture over the area, one of the areas that has really not had a lot of rain in quite a long amount of time. So over the Yucatan and the Central American area, obviously, as we get through the week, this is going to be an area we're going to really be monitoring very closely. We still have our Central American gyre in play. We are getting an abundant amount of moisture coming in from the Southwest Caribbean, so storms are really prominent right now over Costa Rica and especially portions of Nicaragua towards Honduras. We're getting a few storms developing over Belize and the Yucatan. Again, it's been a little bit more spotty, but where the storms have gotten going, they've been heavy. Earlier today, we had some pretty good storms over Cancun. It's still isolated in nature there right now, but this is an area that will continue to have a fairly high chance for showers and storms each and every day, and especially, of course, as our next disturbance and potential next tropical depression or storm moves closer later into the week. Let me go back over here before we get into that, and I'm going to go over to our big perspective. So now we're going to get into this disturbance. We're going to take a look at the reflectivity, which is, of course, is the rain. We're going to take a look at the wind and the wind speeds, and we're going to take a look at the spin in the atmosphere as we break this down. And as I'm doing that, and I'm loading up the model, if you haven't liked this video yet, please do me a big favor, support the channel, click that like button right now. I appreciate you. If you haven't subscribed to Meteo Mundo, click that subscribe button. And thanks for all those who have found these super thanks, those who have found other ways to support the channel in the description below. I absolutely appreciate you. Thank you so much for supporting me here at Meteo Mundo. Okay, so let's get into it here. We're going to take a look at the GFS model, and I'm going to loop this up here over the next 5 days. So give me just 1 second. I was looking at so many different things before I came on the air here. So again, we're going to look at the rain associated with this first, and then we're going to look at the winds, and we're going to look at the spin in the atmosphere. So just focusing in on this disturbance, because there's more to talk about in the tropics for the next week ahead as well. We're going to continue to watch this move across the central Caribbean and then into, of course, the western and the northwest sides of the Caribbean. Now, as we get closer to this area in yellow, you can really see the GFS model begin to pick up on that right where the eastern extent of that formation zone is from the National Hurricane Center. This is going to be late Thursday and then into Friday and then Saturday and then into Sunday. Sunday is the 30th. So basically we're talking about the potential to spin this up just to the east of Nicaragua and Honduras as we get into late Thursday and then approaching the Belize, Guatemala, Yucatan coastline Friday and into Saturday. All right, now that's kind of the general broad brush of this, but obviously areas like the Cayman Islands and Jamaica and other areas South and Central America need to be paying attention, and for any areas of interest in Mexico there on the Gulf of Mexico side as well. So again, I'm just going to loop this over the next 5 days. You can see that we don't, first of all, the GFS is not as prominent with the rain that it should be over the next 48 hours. I'm going to show you the NAM model, which is a little bit better handle on that. But overall, with this development right here, I agree with it, and you can see that pushing off towards the end. Now look, nothing looks crazy, impressive out of this, right? We don't really see that big spin up there in the reflectivity. We'll take a look at the wind field for you right now as well. So this is going to be your low level winds, okay? This is not a composite. This is not higher up in the atmosphere. These would be surface winds out of the GFS model. And obviously we're going to have a big freshening of these winds. It's going to kick up the sea conditions. It's going to bring squally weather and downpours regardless of development. I mean, this is going to be another active pattern. Of course, as it gets closer to Central America, it begins to get under the influence of the larger Central American gyre, right? This huge cyclonic spin that's already in place. So I would anticipate there, to be aid, if you will, in the mid and the upper levels of the atmosphere as well. Now, again, we don't really see this pinhole, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the winds aren't that strong. If I stop this right here, which is going to be Friday evening, all right, and we look at these areas, and I can query these numbers, okay? So let me get back to where we were. I can actually look at these wind speeds right here. So again, at the surface, under this central dense overcast, the GFS model does support minimal tropical storm force winds greater than 39 miles an hour. And it's a relatively expansive area here under this area in white, all right? Even as you get towards the pinks, we're well into the 30s until you get towards the purples and it begins to tail off. But the bottom line is, from the GFS model, as we get into Friday, this would support the possibility of a development of a depression or a weak tropical storm before it would move into the Yucatan. And you can clearly see that right there. And again, we don't really have that pinhole, but we don't necessarily need it under that central dense overcast when you're talking about a depression or a weak tropical storm. So obviously some wind impacts expected for Central America and portions of the Yucatan. The Cayman Islands will be included in that, and the southern coastline of Jamaica as well. So all my friends in this area, stay vigilant. I'm going to keep you updated every day. There'll be a lot more to talk about here, of course, as we go through the week. So that's what it looks like with the winds. Let's look at the vorticity, or the spin in the atmosphere as well, because this will be a little bit easier to see here where the concentration of that wrap up might be occurring. So we'll look at this and the other product that I prematurely showed you there in the preview. That's going to be the European model's take on this vorticity product as well. So again, this is kind of like fluid dynamics, twist in the atmosphere. This is a composite of the lower levels, and you can clearly see on the GFS right there in the Northwest Caribbean, just before it gets towards Belize and the Yucatan, that we could have a little bit more of a twist, a little bit more of a spin up. Now, if we carry this over, this would be going over the Yucatan and into the southwest Gulf of Mexico, late Saturday and into Sunday. Looks to be a relatively progressive system, which is good in the sense of that we don't need to be piling up a lot more rain in this area that has been so wet, but more wet weather is coming. But it looks like there is going to be some forward speed to this thing. And if there's any little piece of good news about that, we can talk about that. So that's what it looks like on the GFS model. This is what it looks like on the European model. Here is, again, it's the same product, our composite low-level vorticity, and it's about the same area. Look, nothing is so tightly wrapped up, and we're not going to really be getting into deep dives of where this could end up being, except showing you that the GFS was supportive wind-wise in the model of a weaker tropical storm. So we could get barrel out of this. It's not out of the question. I mean, again, we went from this, oh, Sahara dust is going to really close down the Eastern Caribbean to, hey, that's a strong tropical wave, to, yeah, we've got an invest, we've got a disturbance, and all that happened in the form of about 24 hours. There is very little wind shear in the Western Caribbean, and there's very high sea surface temperatures as well. If you look at the European pressure forecast, this is the ensemble products here, and you can see out of the 50 members, some of them do promote an area of low pressure in the Northwest Caribbean, then over the Yucatan, and into the southwest sides of the Gulf of Mexico. And again, all of that is the same timing as the GFS. Potential development right now, the earliest late Thursday as it approaches the Central American Yucatan coastline into Friday, and then over the Yucatan and emerging into the southwest Gulf into the latter part of the weekend. Obviously, as I mentioned, it's going to kick up surf and sea conditions. That's going to be another big story. Any mariners in the Western Caribbean need to keep very close and vigilant attention to that. Bermuda is going to pick up some fresher winds as well. Pretty solid easterlies coming back into the Bahamas and the Lesser Antilles as well. I mean, when you get into the greens, guys, you're looking at some wave heights that could be approaching 8 feet in some locations, and there will be some longer period swells coming along for the ride as well. So my mariners, my boater friends, please pay extra vigilant attention to this. Okay, so let's get back out to this, and I want to talk about the areas in a general sense that need to continue to monitor this. Obviously, everyone should be keeping a close eye, but those that could have some impacts, and we're not going to get any more specific than that right now, would include Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, and the Yucatan Peninsula. Obviously, when we're talking about Central America and the Yucatan, that's going to be on the Caribbean side and not the Pacific. Not that they're not going to get some fresh winds and some rain out of it, but obviously the situation is going to be a little bit more prominent on the Caribbean side. So now let's look at the rest of the rain forecast across our entire area for the next few days. Then we'll go back into the tropics because there's more to talk about than just this disturbance. But I do want to bring up the NAM model. And again, if you've been hanging with me here at Meteo Mundo, you know, I like to show you the different models. There's not one model, guys, that's going to just always be slam on here. So there's a few things about the NAM that I like a little bit better, and it's going to take me just 1 second to load it up. First of all, as I mentioned, the GFS just doesn't really pick up on the actual rainfall that's going to be moving into, and we cross our fingers, the ABC Islands. I don't know how long it's been since I've had a 60% chance of rain for the ABC Islands, but I have that for Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao for tomorrow as the axis of this tropical wave comes through. Should be some fresh winds, should be some solid downpours associated with that. So then, let me zoom back in here, as we get towards the development region, the NAM is right with the European model and the GFS, right on that eastern extent of the area in yellow is where this tries to flare up more. Now, this is a little bit more elongated system on the NAM, and I agree with that as well. This could be, again, you know, when we're talking about a tropical wave, this is an elongated axis of moisture. There could be a consolidation of a low pressure area to the south, but there will probably be a pretty good far extent of some rain to the north. So portions of Hispaniola, but especially Jamaica, the Cayman Islands, and Cuba should see some rainfall out of this. And as I've mentioned before, we are getting back into the Central American gyre here as well. And now that we're going to pick up southeasterly winds south of this potential development, disturbance, tropical depression, whatever it becomes, now more moisture is going to be fed into the eastern and the southern side. So now all of Central America, even if you don't have direct impacts from that disturbance, starts to get wetter again. All right. For the rest of our area, scattered showers will continue through portions of the Bahamas over the next day or two. It is going to start to get drier in this area as we get into late Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Still could see a few showers in the forecast as we get closer to the weekend, but a little bit of a drier trend. Still some scattered showers and storms for Cuba. Already mentioned again, more rain coming back into Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. Now as we get towards the Turks and the Caicos, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands here, these are the areas that are going to be most influenced by the Saharan dust. Very limited rain chances the next couple of days. We're going to start to pick up more rain again Thursday and into Friday. Haze is going to be a factor, very hot conditions as well. And it's the same situation for most of the Lesser Antilles, even down into the Windward Islands. Our next axis of moisture won't be moving in until at least Thursday, Friday. And so that's going to be really the next opportunity for some rain. So for Anguilla and Montserrat and Dominica, Barbados, St. Vincent the Grenadines, Trinidad and Tobago, even into portions of South America, we're going to get into about a 72-hour window of drier air as the axis of Saharan dust is a bigger factor than the tropical moisture that's in play. So let's break down the rain chance in your area here. 40% chance for the Bahamas over the next couple days, down to 30% chance on Thursday. Our friends on the central and southeast sides of the Bahamas, even a little bit more limited right now. Turks and Caicos, again, drying out fairly prominently here. Not a lot of rain the next 3 days. Cuba's rain chances stay relatively high, might bump up that chance a little bit on Thursday. Cayman Islands, again, still some downpours. They've been a little bit more spotty the last couple of days. Improving rain chances with the approach of that disturbance on Thursday. Same thing for Belize, Cancun, and Cozumel. Look, we've had pretty good storms across these areas most afternoons. The rain chance, relatively speaking, remains high. Jamaica's rain chances stay good as well. And again, those numbers going up Thursday, Friday with the approach of the disturbance. So the Dominican Republic goes from not a lot of rain the next couple of days to some higher rain chances. And I apologize, this is not the correct numbers here. The numbers for the Dominican Republic should be for the same for Puerto Rico. It's a 10% chance today, 20% tomorrow, 40 on Thursday. So I do apologize. Cross those out. U.S. and British Virgin Islands, again, rain chances ramping up with the next moisture axis coming in, but not until at least Thursday. Bermuda will see a better chance for some showers and storms and kicked up sea conditions beginning on Thursday as well. Again, Anguilla goes from a 10% chance the next couple of days to at least a 40% chance on Thursday, and St. Martin will see the same situation. Antigua, Barbuda, again, ramping up pretty significantly, not until Thursday. So again, drier, hot, hazy conditions out there the next few days. Montserrat, 10 to 20. Now up to a 40% chance on Thursday. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a few showers left over today, then drier tomorrow, a few showers on Thursday. Barbados is basically already dried out. They'll pick up a few more showers on Thursday. Trinidad and Tobago, again, a couple of showers still possible later today, and then you see drier forecast through Thursday. Suriname will see some decent storms today, and then those rain chances ramp back down. And my goodness, my friends in the ABC Islands, let me know in the comments section below. I really have some interest here because you guys have been so dry, and we've been desperate to get you guys some rain, and that looks to be about the best chance we've had in quite some time as this tropical disturbance moves into your area. Okay, now it's time to talk about the rest of the tropics. And again, as I'm getting this loaded up, if you haven't hit the like button, I appreciate you very much. If you've been looking for your forecast, your daily forecast across the Caribbean and the Bahamas, you found your home here at Meteo Mundo. Obviously, when the tropics are heating up, we take our time and we get into the situation. So I'm going to go back over to the GFS model. I'm going to go back over to the wind here. I'm going to bring up the low-level winds, and then I'm going to take this all the way out until the 4th of July. Because the next thing I want to talk about here is another tropical wave that looks to be moving through the Caribbean in early July. Now, if you joined me yesterday, we talked about how both the European model and the GFS picked up on a potential area in the northern side of the Lesser Antilles, July 3rd, July 4th. There's still a signal there today, but it is relatively weaker. And of course, these models, when you're talking about being 7, 8, 9 days out, are going to go back and forth some, okay? We want to see model run-to-run consistency. I want to see at least 2 different models have the same or similar outputs. So again, both models have weakened that a little bit. But what I do want to mention is on the heels of this next tropical wave, here comes another one here. And again, that's a disturbance. But as we get into the early part of July, the next tropical wave on the GFS looks to be even stronger. Okay, so this is the next area of interest after we monitor this tropical wave all of this week. this potential next tropical wave, which on the GFS has a little bit more bite to it wind-wise already and developing earlier, even east of the Lesser Antilles. This is for informational purposes only. Again, but the European model has a little bit to talk about with this area as well. So that's going to be the next one to be monitoring. And again, even though there's some Saharan dust present in the main development region of the Atlantic, it looks like these tropical waves are being able to overcome that, at least on the models as of now. Let's look at the vorticity with this. Again, this is the spin in the atmosphere. Now, if we compare this, just to show you, if we compare this to the spin that we see here with our already known disturbance, which more than likely will get at least more developed if it becomes a depression or a tropical storm in the western side of the Caribbean. When I show you this one here, you're going to see that it looks even a little bit more impressive on the vorticity. So watch this come in together here late in July. Here it comes. It's already held together, moving through the Windward Islands and then into the eastern and central Caribbean. We're still a ways away. Informational purposes only. I don't want to get into any more than that, but when there's something like this that I see, we obviously want to talk about it, and considering that we've already had one tropical wave right now just ramp up like that, it obviously bears watching. Now, the European model still has this weaker signal up in the Lesser Antilles. This again is going to be what, early on July 1st here, or July 3rd, excuse me. And it's not as tight. There's not a closed center of circulation anymore in the European model in the Lesser Antilles. As it gets into the Western Atlantic, as it moves north and west, there is, but not over the Lesser Antilles. So that's something to talk about. And again, on the GFS model here, we just don't see it nearly as much. But what we do see is the tropical wave train staying very, very active. And as I've mentioned, a little bit farther north in latitude now, coming out of the intertropical convergence zone. So this is something, by the way, is very unusual for late June, early July to have these tropical waves traversing the Atlantic and into the Caribbean with development potential. Typically, this time of the year, we're looking Western Atlantic, Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean. We're not watching these waves coming in. That's an August, September, October pattern. So, you know, already kind of jumping the gun as far as that goes. Friends, rainfall total-wise, let's get into that real quick. Let me take off the formation zone. This is just over the next 5 days. And so again, for the Yucatan and Central America, significant rain could be on the way. On the GFS model, let me see if I can get our probe model to work here. You can see again, we're going to have pockets of 4, 5 inches of rain. There's no way Cancun's going to have that little, but that's what the GFS is showing. I'll show you the European model coming up. Again, we like to average these numbers, but even on this average, look at the Pacific side here. You know, 4, 5, 6 more inches of rain coming in just the next 5 days. It would include what we would get out of our disturbance slash potential depression slash potential tropical storm, because this is all the way to the 30th. But again, that's another fresh, heavy rainfall event for this area. The GFS, as I've mentioned, I think is a little too weak up north. I think the extension of the rain is going to be a little bit higher there. You can see this other elongated area moving up towards Bermuda with some healthier rain chances there. Bermuda should get into the act and get a couple of inches of rain out of it. Your drier areas are going to be the Greater Antilles to the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. Just not as much rain for my friends in San Juan and Santo Domingo for the next 5 days. Again, we've had some decent rain, Barbados off towards the south. Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. The GFS does not pick up the rain as it should, so I'm hoping for more rain there. But again, we'll be seeing higher rainfall totals in the Western Caribbean. Now, I believe the European model a lot more, and these numbers are in millimeters. Do you see how much more red is on the screen through the Central and the Western Caribbean? I think that's how this bears out. So you're looking at 75, 100 millimeters of rain. 4 inches of rain is 100 millimeters. Okay, so when you get to 100 millimeters, you're at 4 inches of rain. And obviously this bears out. Now for the ABC Islands here, we're still more in that, let's say 20 to 25 millimeter range. But if we can get a quick passing inch or higher in a couple of those tropical downpours, I gotta say we gotta take it, friends. It's the next best chance we're gonna have. But the tropical wave train looks to be more active and bring some rain to your area. But an area that had been so dry and now so wet continues to be so with the Central American gyre and this disturbance. You can see the rain pushing up towards portions of Western Atlantic and Bermuda, and again a little bit drier through portions of the Lesser Antilles, but at least some heavier rain possible, especially on the southern side. Friends, you can follow us across all of social media. Here are our handles: Instagram, TikTok, X, Facebook, mymeteomundo@gmail.com. You have a picture or a video you want to send me. If you have a question about the forecast, drop it in the comments section below. While you're down there, thank you again for hitting the like button and subscribing if you haven't subscribed as of yet. You know I'll keep you updated. I'll have the very latest coming up tomorrow, so see you then. Until then, have a great one, friends, and I'll see you soon right here at Meteo Mundo.